Welcome to the Explainer, everyone. So today we're tackling something that I know causes a ton of anxiety for early career researchers, and that is securing funding. We've all been there, right? Staring at a blank application form and feeling completely overwhelmed? Well, we're going to dive right into this and unpack the absolute insider secrets of grant applications. And this is all drawn directly from Associate Professor Noriko Iwashida's incredibly insightful ALAA Workshop 2 on grant writing. You are definitely in the right place. Let's kick things off with a hard truth from Noriko that honestly every researcher really needs to hear. Rejection, it's completely normal. It's just part of the process. The crucial takeaway here is that every single application you write, yes, even the ones that get rejected, is a stepping stone. You're basically building muscle memory. It makes your next pitch even stronger because you learn by doing.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. 1. Where to find funding. 2. Research versus grant proposals. 3. Anatomy of an application. 4. Building your track record. And finally, 5. Pro tips for success.
Let's jump right in. Section 1. Where to find funding. Now, a lot of us immediately think of our university's internal grants, which is great, but you really need to broaden your horizons. ECR should absolutely be exploring Category 2 and Category 3 opportunities. We're talking about government and industry grants here. Think TURF, Duolingo, the British Council, even organizations like UNESCO and UNICEF. Testing agencies like TOEFL actually offer practitioner grants specifically designed to support teaching professionals. The big takeaway? Look beyond those traditional academic avenues. The funding is out there. You just need to know which doors to knock on.
And here is a massive pro tip. You should be actively hunting for grants that are explicitly ring-fenced just for early career researchers. The Language Learning ECR grant program is a prime example they mentioned in the workshop. Why does this matter so much? Because it completely levels the playing field. You aren't going head-to-head against someone with 30 years of publications. You're competing against your peers.
Moving right along, Section 2, Research versus Grant Proposals.
Think of a research proposal and a grant proposal kind of like two apples. Sure, on the surface, they might look like the exact same fruit. I mean, they both involve literature reviews, they both have methodologies, right? But fundamentally, underneath the skin, they're completely different beasts, and they are judged by entirely different criteria.
Let's really break that difference down. When you write a research proposal, your whole emphasis is on academic value. You're writing for specialists in your exact niche to prove your intellectual merit. But a grant proposal? Wow, that is an entirely different game. You are writing to persuade a funder to invest in you. They care heavily about budget justification. They're asking, is this value for money? Can this team actually pull this off? What's the real-world impact? And critically, you have to write your project summary so that a non-specialist can perfectly understand it without drowning in academic jargon. Which brings us to a kind of harsh but super necessary reality check from the workshop. You could have the most brilliant, groundbreaking, fascinating research topic in the entire world, but if it doesn't align with the funder's specific priority areas, it won't get funded. It really is that simple. Remember, you are solving their problem, not just funding your own curiosity.
All right, Section 3. Anatomy of an application.
Noriko actually deconstructed the Language Learning ECR grant to show us exactly what funders want to see across 6 core components. Your title? It must be engaging immediately. Then, you have to clearly state the problem and why it matters. You map out your aims and your methodology. Notice Step 5, Innovation and Impact. Who actually benefits from this? The key here is that every single one of these steps has to build a cohesive, persuasive narrative that proves to the funder your project is feasible and totally worth their investment. Now, a major area you absolutely cannot overlook is the budget. The workshop made it crystal clear that funders scrutinize this stuff relentlessly. You can't just throw out a lump sum. You have to meticulously justify every single dollar. Why exactly do you need that research assistant? Why that specific software? If you're asking for travel funds, especially nowadays with so many online meetings, you better have an airtight reason for why being there in person is totally essential for your research and for disseminating your findings.
Okay, Section 4. Building your track record. So this is the classic catch-22 that came up during the workshop's Q&A. You need money to build a track record of research, but you need a track record to convince them to give you the money. It's maddening, right? It is incredibly validating to know that pretty much every single early career researcher struggles with this exact anxiety. But the good news is, the workshop offered some very clear strategies to break out of this cycle.
Honestly, you actually have way more of a foundation than you think.
If you don't have 100 publications, that's fine. Just pivot your strategy. Highlight your PhD scholarships. Showcase your past awards. Any conference presentation totally counts as evidence of dissemination. The advice from the experts is clear. Start publishing in smaller, accessible journals right now. And, importantly, frame the research you're currently doing for your PhD as direct, tangible evidence of your research capability in that specific topic.
And here's just a phenomenal piece of advice from the Q&A session that you can start acting on right away. If you want to build a track record of winning grants, team up. Seriously, collaborate with more experienced senior researchers on their applications. Being part of a successful grant team, even as a junior member, gets your foot in the door. It teaches you the ropes and puts a big, shiny Grant One on your CV, which is going to make your future solo applications infinitely stronger.
Finally, Section 5, Pro Tips for Success.
These might seem like just boring admin tasks, but they will literally make or break your application. Start way in advance. Read the guidelines like every single word. And here is a massive lifesaver. Do not try to guess how your university handles overheads or budgets. Just go straight to your institution's finance office, let them help you wrestle with those incredibly complicated spreadsheets so you can actually focus on the research. And of course, always get your colleagues to read your draft before you hit submit.
You've got to be a bit of an investigator here. Don't just guess what the granting body wants. If you have questions, reach out and ask them directly. Clarify their expectations. The more you investigate their exact needs, the more precisely you can tailor your application to solve their specific problems. And this right here, this is essentially the ultimate cheat code mentioned in the workshop. If it's available, get your hands on past successful applications. Talk to the people who actually won the grant you're applying for. Reading a winning application completely decodes how to structure your narrative, what tone to use, and what that specific funder truly values in a successful pitch.
Well, we have covered a ton of ground today, from finding those hidden grants to overcoming that track record catch-22. But I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. Whenever you sit down to write your next application, try to stop thinking like a traditional academic researcher for just a minute and start thinking like an entrepreneur pitching for an investment. What specific problem does your research solve, and why should a funder invest in you today? If you can answer that clearly, you are already halfway to winning. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, everyone. Keep investigating, keep pitching, and we'll catch you next time.